Hello everyone, my name is Dijonae Jaynae and welcome back to my educational channel. In today's lesson, we will be focusing on dividing decimals by whole numbers. And my mommy is going to be doing this with you. Enjoy!
All right, guys. All right, guys. In today's lesson, we are going to be doing some division. And of course, we're going to be dividing decimals by whole numbers. Are you ready to begin this lesson? All right. We're not going to waste any time. We are going to go right ahead. And of course, we are going to go right in today's lesson. All right. The first problem we have here, we have 23.5 divide by 5. All right, so that's the first problem we are going to be working. The first thing we have to do is to make sure we set our problems out. All right, so let's go ahead and set this problem out. All right, in a division, you have a quotient, you have a remainder in some cases, you also have the dividend, and of course, we have the divisor. All right, so let's go right ahead and complete this task. All right, so in this problem that we have here, 23.5 is known as your dividend. This is where you put your dividend. And of course, 5 is known as your divisor. That's where you put your divisor. Let me write the word divisor so you can see it. And that's D-I-V-I-S-O-R, divisor. And of course, this is the word dividend. Let me write it so you can see it clearly. And that's D-I-V-I-S-O-R. D-E-N-D. That's the word dividend. And of course, your answer that you will get is known as your quotient. And of course, that Q-U-O-T-I-E-N-T. All right. So let's go right ahead and work this problem. The first thing you are going to do is that you are going to ask yourself, how many groups of 5 can you get from 2? Let us know how many groups of 5s you can get from 2. And of course, we know that 2 is smaller than 5, so we can't get a group of 5 from 2. So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to put a 0 here to say no, we can't. Then the next thing we're going to do is to put these two digits together, and we're going to get 23. How many groups of 5 can you get from 23? And of course, we can get 4 groups of 5. All right? So the next thing we're going to do is to multiply. We are going to multiply this 4 by this 5. And of course, 4 multiplied by 5 or 5 multiplied by 4, of course, that is 20. Look where I'm putting my 20. The next thing we're going to do is to draw our line, and of course, we're going to subtract. So you're going to take 0 thing from 3 thing, and of course, you still have your 3 thing left. And of course, you have 2 things, and you give away all 2 of them, you have 0 left. All right, the next thing is that you're going to ask yourself, how many groups of 5 can you get from 3? You can't get a group of 5 from 3. Why? Because 3 is smaller than 5. So look to see what is next in your dividend. The next thing in our dividend is that we have our decimal place. So let's put it back. All right. So the next thing we are going to do is that we are now going to bring the 5 down. All right. So let's bring our 5 down and continue. All right. So I'll put in my arrow here to say that I'm bringing down my 5. So when I bring my 5 down and put it beside my 3, I now have 35. How many groups of 5s can I get from 35? So of course, we can only get 7 groups. We can only get 7 groups. All right, so I'm going to put my 7 right here. So now the next step is to multiply. I'm going to take this 7, and of course, I'm going to multiply it by this 5. And of course, 7 multiplied by 5 or 5 multiplied by 7, of course, you get 35. Then I'm going to take away next. You have 5 things, you give away 5, you have 0 left. You have 3 things, you give away 3, you have 0 left. So the next thing is that we're going to look to see if we have any more digits in our dividend. If we don't, this is simply telling us that the problem is finished. All right. So of course, we don't have any more. So the next step is that we're going to go ahead and we're going to check to see if our answer is correct. How do we go about proving if our answer is correct? This is the way we are going to go about doing it. Look at me carefully. I'm going to show all working over here. So I'm going to write proof answer right here. So that's where I'm going to prove my answer. All right. So how am I going to prove my answer? I know that's a famous question. All right. I am going to take my quotient, and of course, I'm going to multiply it by my divisor. All right. What is my quotient? Look carefully at what I'm doing. My quotient is 0.04.7. So that's 0.4.7. And of course, we are multiplying by 5. All right. So that's the problem. That's the problem. All right. Look carefully at the problem. So what we're going to do, we are going to ensure that the first thing we do is that we check to see how many digits are after our decimal place. In this case, we only have 1 digit. And of course, I'm going to put my decimal point down. You see my decimal point is lining up. And of course, I'm going to put a small dot right there to say I only have 1 digit after my decimal place. All right, so I'm going to take my 7 and I'm going to multiply it by my 5. And of course, 7 multiplied by 5 or 5 multiplied by 7, you're going to get 35. I'm going to put down the digit that is in the ones place. And of course, that is my 5. And of course, the next thing I'm going to do is to ensure that I carry my 3 over to my ones place. All right, so I'm now going to take my 4 and multiply it by 5. And 4 multiplied by 5 or 5 multiplied by 4, of course, we're going to get 20. 20 plus 3 is going to be 23. And this is how I write my 23. 23 is a 2-digit number. And of course, I'm going to put down the digit that is in the ones place. So I'm going to put my 3 down. And of course, the next thing I'm going to do is to carry my 2 over to the tens place. All right. The next thing I'm going to take my 0 and multiply it by 5, or say 5 multiplied by 0. All right. Whenever you multiply a number by 0, you are going to get 0. All right. So 5 multiplied by 0, of course, is 0. So the next thing is that 0 plus this 2 that I carry, of course, is going to give us 2. So I am now finished with that multiplication problem. The next thing I am going to do in this case is now look to see if this that we just worked, and of course this that we just worked is the multiplication problem. And of course, the answer that you get in a multiplication problem is known as your product. And of course, I'm going to write the word product there so you see what I'm talking about. So right here we have our product, and that's P-R-O-D-U-C-T. Your answer here is known as your product. All right? I hope you're understanding so far. The next thing that we're going to do right here is that we're going to check to see if the product is the same thing as our dividend. If it is the same thing as our dividend, then this is telling us that our quotient in the division problem, it is correct. So let's check now. So we have 23.5, and of course that is our product. And of course, 23.5 is the same thing as our dividend. So this is telling us now that, of course, our problem was properly done. So 0.4 is the same thing as 4 right here. So our answer is 0.04.7, which is the same thing as 4.7. And of course, that is our quotient. Let me repeat again. 0.4.7 is known as our quotient. And of course, that is the same thing as your answer. And just take a quick look before I erase it. And of course, that is to show you that the problem was properly solved. All right, take a look. Take a look. And of course, this is it. All right, let me go to the chat to see the persons who are here with us. And of course, we have Nika's Corners. And of course, good afternoon, everyone, coming from Nika. And of course, Nika, thank you so very much for coming on in. We have Latoya Stewart. Thank you, Latoya, for coming on in. And of course, guys, thank you for making it Dijonae Jaynae Gordon Educational Channel. And of course, we are in Maths Hour and we are looking at some division problem. And of course, we're dividing decimals by whole numbers. All right. So we're going to go right ahead. And of course, we are going to do another problem. So I'm going to erase this one. All right. So let me erase this one for you and do another one. And of course, Nika is saying awesome. Thank you so very much, Nika. Thank you for coming on in and for sharing with us. All right, guys, also, please be reminded that when you are doing division, the first thing you would do is to divide. Then, of course, we are going to, after dividing, we are going to multiply. And after multiplying, we are going to take away. After take away, we are going to bring down. And of course, after bringing down, we are going to repeat the process until the problem is finished. All right. So let's look at this second example. The next problem that we have to work is 7.8 divided by 3. That's a problem we have to work next. All right, so I'm going to write it right over here so you can see clearly. All right, so that is 7.8, and of course we're dividing by 3. All right, so let's set the problem out and start working. Remember now, in a division, the first thing you have to do is to set your problem out. And of course, 7.8 is known as your dividend. And of course, 3 in this case is known as your divisor. 3 in this case is known as your divisor. All right, so to get the answer, we have to now go ahead and solve the problem. Let's do so together. All right, so the first thing you are going to ask yourself, how many groups of 3s can you get from 7? From 7, you can only get 2 groups of 3s. So we just divide. Now we're going to multiply. 3 multiplied by 2 or 2 multiplied by 3, you will get the same answer, which is 6. This is where I'm putting my 6. All right, the next step is to take away. And of course, you're going to write your takeaway sign so you can see exactly what you are doing. All right, so the next thing you're going to do is that you're going to say you have 7 things, you give away 6, you have 1 left. All right, so can you get a group of 3 from 1? No, you can't, because 1 is smaller than 3. All right, so let's see the next thing that is in line. And of course, it is your decimal place. You're going to put it back right here in your quotient. The next thing is that you're going to look to see the next digit where it is. And of course, you are going to bring it right down. So that's numeral 8. And of course, the 8 is in the 10th place. And I'm going to bring it down right there. The next thing I am going to do is to now say 18, because now it comes down. It is now 18, all right? So now you're going to ask yourself, how many groups of threes can you get from 18? And of course, how many groups of threes can you get from 18? You can only get 6 groups of threes. All right? So the next step is to multiply. So 6 multiplied by 3 or 3 multiplied by 6. Of course, you will get the same answer, which is 18. Draw your line, and of course, you're going to take away. All right? You have 18 things, and you give away all 18 of them, you get 0 thing left. All right? So right here, this problem is complete because we don't have an x digit in our dividend. And of course, our quotient, which is the same thing as our answer, is 2.6. All right? Remember, when we are doing division, it is easy for us to check to see if our answer is correct. How do we go about doing that? We just simply multiply our quotient by our divisor. All right? So let's plug that in and check to see if everything is okay. All right. So I'm going to do that for you. All right. So here I'm going to check. And of course, I'm going to write my 2.6, 2.6. And of course, I'm going to multiply it by 3. Remember now, we are multiplying a decimal number. So the first thing you have to do is to check to see how many decimal places you have after your decimal. So let's identify the decimal. And of course, it is right here. And after it, we only have 1. We only have 1 decimal place. I hope you are seeing me clearly. All right. So I'm going to put my decimal down. And of course, I'm going to put a small dot right there to show you that there should be only 1 digit after my decimal place. All right. So I'm going to take my 6 and multiply it by 3. And of course, 6 multiplied by 3 or 3 multiplied by 6, you have 18. 18 is a 3-digit number. So the first thing you're going to do is to put down what? You're going to put down the digit that is in the ones place. And of course, that is 8. The next thing you're going to do is to carry the 1 over to the ones column. All right. So the next step is to take my 2 and multiply it by 3. So 2 multiplied by 3 is a 6. Or you can say 3 multiplied by 2, still 6. But remember this one that you carry, you're going to add it to 6. And of course, you're going to get 7. All right. So let's check. All right. Remember now, in a multiplication problem, your answer is known as your product. So this is known as our product. Let me write it for you. And of course, the word product, this is how it is spelled. Product. That's the word product. All right. So I hope you are understanding so far, and it is not hard. All right. So let's check to see if our product is the same thing as our dividend. If it is the same thing, it simply means that our quotient is correct. All right. And of course, our dividend is 7.8 and our product is 7.8. So therefore, this is telling us that the answer, which is the same thing as our quotient for our division problem, is correct. Look at it carefully. I'm giving you some time to look at it. All right. Thank you for making it Dijonae Jaynae Educational Channel. And of course, guys, it is always a pleasure having you over here on Dijonae's Educational Channel. All right. What we're going to do next is that we are going to do another problem. What we're going to do is to do another problem. All right. So I'm going to erase this one. And of course, we're going to do another problem together. So let me take this one off the board. All right, guys, let us look at the next problem. And of course, the next problem that we have here is 33.6 divided by 4. That's the next problem. And I'm going to write it so you can see it. All right, let's do it together. So that's 33.6. And of course, we're dividing by 4. All right, so that's the problem that we're going to be working. Remember, as usual, the first thing we're going to do is to set it out. All right, so that's 33.6, and that is our dividend. And of course, 4 is our divisor. And of course, let me write it so you can see it. That's our divisor. The next step is that we are going to go right ahead and try to find our quotient. All right, let's do that together. First, ask yourself, how many groups of 4s can you get from 3? And of course, we can't get a group of 4 from 3. So we're going to write 0 right here. The next step is that we're going to put these two digits together, and now we're going to call them 33. How many groups of 4s can we get from 33? And of course, we can only get 8 groups. So I put my 8 there. And now I'm going to take my 8 and multiply it by 4. And of course, 8 multiplied by 4 or 4 multiplied by 8, it is 32. All right? So I'm going to draw my line, and the next step is to take away. All right? So now I'm going to take away 32 from 30. And of course, I am going to have 1 left. Or I can say 3 take away 2, you have 1 left. And of course, 3 take away 3, you have 0 left. All right? Can you get a group of 4 from 1? No, we can't, because 1 is smaller than 4. So therefore, we have to see what is next in line in our dividend. And of course, it's the decimal place. You put it back. And of course, write in your quotient. And of course, look to see what is next. And of course, the next digit that we have is 6. And of course, in this case, the 6 is in the 10th place. I'm going to bring it right down beside this one. And of course, it is now become 16. So now I'm going to ask, how many groups of 4s can you get from 16? And of course, we can only get 4 groups of 4 from 16. And of course, now we are going to take 4 and multiply it by 4. You are going to get 16. All right? So now you're going to take away, and you have 16 things, and you give away all 16 of them. You have 0 left. So that is telling us that the problem is complete. So your problem is complete. So the next step is to check to see if your quotient is correct. And of course, your quotient multiplied by your divisor should give you back your dividend. And of course, if you get that, that is telling you that your quotient is correct. So let's do check. All right. So I'm going to take my 0.8. Sorry, I'm going to take my 0.8, and I'm going to multiply it by 4. All right, so I take my 0.8, and of course, I am multiplying it by my 4. All right, so first you put down your decimal, and of course, the next thing you're going to do is to check to see how many digits after your decimal place, and we only have 1 digit, so I'm going to put a dot right there. All right, so now I'm going to take this 4 multiplied by 4, and of course that's 16. 16 is a 2-digit number. I'm going to put my 6 down, and of course the next thing I'm going to do is to carry my 1 over to my 1's place. All right, then I'm going to take my 4 and multiply it by 8, or 8 multiplied by 4. And of course, you would get 32. And you're going to add this one to it, you're going to get 33. 33 is a 2-digit number. I'm going to put down this 3. That is in the 1's place. Carry this 3. That is in the 10th place over to this 10th column. All right. Now I'm going to take my 0 multiplied by 4. And of course, 4 multiplied by 0 is 0 multiplied by 4. You are going to get 0. So 0 plus 3, of course, you're going to get 3. All right. So in your multiplication problem, your answer that you get, remember at all time, it is known as your product. It is known as your product. So let me write the word product. And of course, Product is known as your product. All right. So let's see if our answer is correct. So 33.6 is the same thing as 33.6 in our dividend. So this is telling us that our answer, which is the same thing as your quotient, 08.4 is correct. So take a look at it before I erase it. You are live on Dijonae's Educational Channel, and thank you for joining Maths Hour. You are tuning in with Debra-kaye. All right. And the next thing we are going to do is that we now have a next problem that we're going to work together. All right. So I'm going to erase this one. I'm going to erase this one. So look carefully at the other problem that we're going to be working together. All right. So the next problem we're going to work is 8.8 divided by 2. That's 8.8 divided by 2. All right. So let's work that problem out. 8.8 divided by 2. So the first thing is to set the problem out. 8.8 is known as your dividend, and of course 2 is your divisor. How many groups of 2's can you get from this 8? And of course 4. You can only get 4 groups of 2's. All right, so now I'm going to take this 4 and multiply it by 2. And of course, that's going to give you 8. Draw your line, take away. You have 8 things and you give away 8. And of course, you have 0 left. Look to see what is next in your dividends. And of course, this is the decimal place. So you're going to put it back in your quotient. The next thing is that you're going to look to see the next digit. And of course, the next digit is 8. You're going to bring it down. And of course, you are going to say to yourself, how many groups of 2's can you get from this 8 that you just bring down? And of course, you can get 4 groups of 2's. All right. So now you are going to take this 4 and multiply it by this 2. And of course, you are going to get 8. Draw your line, take away. All right. So the next thing is that you are going to say you have 8 things and you give away all 8 of it. You have 0 left. All right. And of course, remember now when you reach 0, that is telling you that your problem is complete. All right. Your problem is complete. All right. So for this problem, your answer, which is the same thing as your quotient, is 4.4. All right. So let's do the check now to see if our answer is correct. Remember now, to do your check, the first thing you have to do is to write back your quotient and multiply by your divisor. So now I'm going to do it with you. 4.4 multiplied by 2. And of course, look carefully. You have 1 digit after the decimal place. All right, so I'm going to put back my decimal place. And of course, I'm going to put 1 dot right there to say that I have 1 digit to go after my decimal place. So 4 multiplied by 2 or 2 multiplied by 4. of course, you're going to get 8. And of course, I'm going to go over here and take this 4 multiplied by 2. And of course, you're still going to get 8. All right. So in this case, in this multiplication problem, of course, the product is 8.8 PRODUCT. All right. So your product is 8.8. All right. So if your product is 8.8 and your dividend is 8.8, that is telling us that our quotient 4.4 is correct. All right. Thank you so very much for joining. Thank you for making it Maths Hour. Thank you for joining Dijonae Educational Channel. Remember now, if you're on the replay, feel free to send us a message on the outside so we know that you were here with us. All right? Take a look at the problem. We have 3 more problems to go. All right? So I'm going to erase that problem. I'm going to erase that problem so you can see exactly what we are doing. All right, so let's erase this one. All right, we're going to take another one. All right, so let's take the next problem. So we have 0.8 divided by 4. 0.8 divided by 4. And of course, the first thing we have to do is to set the problem out. The 0.8 is our dividend, and of course, 4 is our divisor. So let's work the problem out. How many groups of 4s can you get from 0? We definitely can't get a group of 4 from 0, so we're going to put a 0 right there to say we can't. Look to see what is in line, next in line. And of course, we have a decimal place. We're going to put it right back. And of course, now, the next thing we're going to do is to put these 2 digits together. And of course, 0, 8 is going to be, and of course, 0, 8, or we can just say 8. All right, how many groups of 4s can we get from 8? And of course, we can only get 2 groups. I'm going to put my 2 right there. So 4 multiplied by 2 or 2 multiplied by 4, of course, you're going to get 8. I'm going to put my 8 right there, and of course, I'm going to take away. You have 8 things, and of course, you take away all 8 of it, you're going to left with 0. So that's the end of that problem. All right. So we're going to prove to see if our quotient is correct, and our quotient, of course, is 0.2. All right. So I'm going to take my quotient now. I'm going to multiply it by our divisor. 0.2. And of course, I'm going to multiply it by 4. All right. You are going to write back your decimal place. Check to see how many digits are after your decimal place, which is 1. I'm going to put 1 dot right there. And of course, look carefully. I'm going to take this 2 multiplied by that 4. And of course, I'm going to get 8. So I'm going to put my 8 down. And of course, I'm going to take my 0 multiplied by 4. And of course, that is 0. All right. So, of course, the answer that you get in a multiplication problem is your product. PRODUCT. All right, that's your product. All right, so your product and your dividend should be the same. All right, and of course they are. So in this case, that is telling us that our quotient is correct. Take a look at the problem, and of course we have 2 more to go. Look carefully at it before I erase it. We only have 2 more problems to go. And this is part 3. All right. Of course, great going so far. I'm going to take off this one now. Of course, we're going to work the other one. And of course, the next problem is 0.36 divided by 3. And of course, we're going to set the problem out as usual. All right. So 0.36 is known as your dividend. And of course, we're going to work it now to get our quotient. And 3 is known as our divisor. All right. And of course, we have with us Henry Lynch. Welcome, Henry. And Henry saying, I miss. Mega welcome to you, Henry. Thanks for making it Dijonae's Educational Channel. And of course, how many groups of 3s can you get from 0? You can't. You're going to put a 0 right there. And of course, the next thing you are going to do is to look to see what is next in line. We have a decimal place. Put your decimal place up there. Then we're going to look for the next digit, which is 3. And of course, it is in the 10th place. All right. Now, how many groups of 3s can you get from this 3 right there? We can only get one group of 3. I'm going to put my 1 right there. And I'm going to take this one and multiply it by 3. And of course, that is 3. Take away now. And of course, you have 3 things. You give away all 3 of it. You have 0 left. The next step is that you're going to look to see what digit is next in line. And of course, that is my 6, which is in the 100th place. And of course, I'm going to bring it right down. And of course, how many groups of 3s? How many groups of 3s can you get from this 6? And of course, you can only get what? 2 groups. All right. So 3 multiplied by this 2, of course, you are going to get 6. Draw your line, and of course, you're going to take away. So now you have all these 6, and you give away 6 of it. All right. You are left with 0. We don't have a next digit in the dividend. So that is telling us that is our answer. So now we're going to do some check. All right. So we're going to check to see if our quotient is correct. All right. Great going so far. Great going. Let's check now. So I'm going to write it down. Of course, I'm going to take my 0.12, which is our quotient, and I'm going to multiply it by 3. All right. Let's do it together. All right. So first, it is a decimal that you're multiplying. Put your decimal place down. And of course, look to see how many digits are after your decimal place. Of course, 1, 2. So I'm going to put 2 dots. All right. That is to ensure that our rows are lined up properly on our columns. All right. So let's look carefully. So now I'm going to take this 2 and multiply it by 3. And of course, 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. And I'm going to put my first answer right in my 100th column. I'm going to put my 6 right there. All right. Remember, only 2 digits must be after your decimal place. All right. So now I'm going to take my 1 and I'm going to multiply it by 3. And of course, that is going to be 3. Now I'm going to take my 0 and multiply it by 3. And remember, at all times when you multiply a number by 0, you are going to get 0. So that is what it looks like. All right. So great going. And of course, remember, as I always say, in a multiplication problem, your answer is known as your product. And that's P-R-O-D-U-C-T. All right. So that's your product. And of course, your product, which is 0.36, is the same thing as 0.36 in your division problem, which is your dividend. And of course, that is telling us that our quotient, which is 0.12, is correct. I'm going to give you a chance to look at it and to see your working. All right, compare your working to mine. And of course, look at it carefully. I'm going to erase it and then I'm going to do the last problem. Thank you for coming on in. Thank you for making it Dijonae's Educational Channel. All right, so we are going to be doing our last problem. And of course, this is our last problem. It is 7.8 divided by 2. That's our last problem. And of course, let us divide 7.8. And of course, is our dividend. And of course, in this case, 2 is known as your divisor. All right, let's work it together. Let's work this problem together. All right, so ask yourself, how many groups of 2's can you get from 7? And of course, that is 3. 3 groups of 2's I can get from 7. So 3 multiplied by 2, of course, that is 6. Write my 6 down, and of course, I'm going to take away. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is to take away 6 from 7. You are left with 1. And of course, the next thing is that you are going to ask yourself, can I get a group of 2 from 1? No, we can't. So the next thing is that we'll look to see what is in line. What is next in line in our dividend? And of course, that's the decimal place. I'm going to put it right back. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to bring down the next digit that is in line. And of course, that is numeral 8, which is in the 10th place. I'm going to bring it right down. And now it becomes 18. And of course, ask yourself, how many groups of 2's can you get from 18? And of course, that is 9 groups of 2's. All right, so 9 multiplied by 2, of course, is 18. And of course, I'm going to take away and 18 things. You give away all 18 of them, you have 0 left. All right, so that is complete. So therefore, for this division problem, your answer, which is the same thing as your quotient, is 3.9. Let's work to see if that is correct. So we're going to do a check to see if our quotient is correct. So we take our quotient, which is 3.9. And of course, we are going to multiply it by 2, which is our divisor. And of course, let's check to see if our answer is correct. First, it is a decimal that you're multiplying. So therefore, put your decimal place. Check to see how many digits are after your decimal place. And of course, we have 1, so I'm going to put 1 point right there. And of course, 9 multiplied by 2 is 18. 18 is a 2-digit number. Put the digit in the 1th place down, which is the 8. And of course, you're going to carry the digit that is in the 10th place over to the 1th place or the 1th column. Yes? All right. So the next step you are going to do is that you're going to take that 3 that is in the 1th place and multiply it by 2. And that, of course, is 6. And the one that you carry is going to make it 7. When you have 6 plus 1 is 7. And of course, your answer in this problem is 7.8. And in a multiplication problem, remember now that your answer is known as your product, and that's Product. That's your product. All right. So guys, thank you so very much for coming on in. Thank you for making it Dijonae's Educational Channel. And of course, we have with us, let me check the chat. Let me check the chat to see who are the persons we have with us. And of course, we have Dijonae. And of course, she's sending me a message to say, love you, mom. And of course, we also have Nisha James TV. And she's saying, hey, Sissy Deborah and Dijonae, love you. We also have Denisha Lynch. And of course, she's saying hello and she's busy working the problem, sending the answer in the chat. We also have Nisha James TV and she's saying greetings to the persons who are in the chat. And of course, she said at work, sis, just a quick run in, keep up the great work. Thank you so very much. And of course, thank you so very much, Sister Nisha James. And of course, guys, she's also one of Dijonae's member. So if you don't have her, feel free to go grab her. And of course, remember to support her as much as possible. Thank you so very much for making it Dijonae's Educational Channel. Thank you for making it Maths Hour. Feel free to watch, like, and share this maths session. Of course, our topic for today that we were looking at is division, and of course, we were focusing on dividing decimals by whole numbers. Until next time, I am Dijonae Mother, I am Debra-kaye, and I'm signing out of Maths Hour. Happy Saturday. Bye bye bye.